Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about something that I've decided to call Christian Darwinism. Maybe this is already an existing term, I don't know. I had to think of a term for what I'm trying to describe here, and that's what popped into my mind. Maybe somebody has come up with a better term. If so, can somebody please tell me? But anyway, I've decided to call it Christian Darwinism. And basically what it boils down to is that thinking Christians have a problem. And that is, of course, that they have to somehow manage to combine, on the one hand, their knowledge of the facts, their realization that life did indeed evolve over billions of years on this planet, and that currently there is a species on this planet called Homo sapiens, which is able to reflect on its own mortality, on its own ideas, and who has the ability to worship something it calls God. On the one hand, they have their religious beliefs, for example, a belief in something called a soul. And they have now got a problem where, how do they make one belief fit what they know about reality? Now, I've seen some interesting attempts to do this. But having thought about it, I see a lot of problems with them. One attempt that I saw was, for example, by Don Exodus 2, and that's the one that I'm going to address here. He put forward the idea that, fair enough, life did evolve over a lot of time. And at some stage, within the last 100,000 years, the species of Homo sapiens emerged, and then at some point God gave that species a soul. That is how he tries to match the two things, his belief and his realization, his knowledge about evolution. Now, having thought about this, a number of problems arise. First of all, I would ask, what distinguishes a human being with a soul from its neighbor which hasn't got a soul? And this is not a facetious question, because if you look at, for example, what we know about human beings, then it is pretty clear that things like cave art, for example, date back a long, long time. So these human beings, whether they did or didn't have a soul, were quite capable of expressing themselves through art, expressing themselves by ritualistic means. And I'm going to get back to that in a minute. So, also, how would a person with a soul feel about the people around him without a soul? So, here's his first problem. What distinguishes a person with a soul from one without? Everything that a person with a soul could do, like for example, make decisions, speak, express themselves, their neighbor without a soul would already be able to do. And there's clear evidence for this, because in recent discoveries about the evolution of the species Homo, or the group of Homo, I can't think of the word now, it is clear that we share all the characteristics, and I mean all the characteristics, that we attribute to Homo sapiens now with our closest but now extinct ancestors. Neanderthals were able to create tools. It is now widely believed that Neanderthals were able to speak. Neanderthals have been shown to have some idea of an afterlife, as we have found Neanderthal ritualistic burials. You can think of any what we would see as uniquely human attribute, and Neanderthals would share it with us. So again, this causes a big problem with this Christian Darwinism. Because if God created a soul and gave it to a human, then that human would share with all its neighbors all the characteristics that we currently see as making us uniquely human. Also, there's another problem. Say that, for example, you say that yes, you wouldn't be able to distinguish a human from its neighbors, a human with a soul from its neighbors without a soul, but still there is this fact that this human has a soul, and that makes it qualitatively different from its soulless neighbors. Well, in that case, you are accepting then that all these attributes that we call uniquely human, again, tool making, speech, the ability to make decisions, our penchant for rituals, are all attributes that belong to our species and have had nothing to do with the soul. And that leaves you in another conundrum. That leaves you in the problem then that if you accept that point of view, you are talking about the soul as something that has no influence, that is just a passenger riding in an automaton that does whatever it was evolved to do anyway. All these aspects of humanity, like tool making and so on, are then just instinctive behaviors that have nothing to do with the expression of the soul. Then, of course, you're left with this problem: how can you hold the soul responsible for what the human animal does? So, my conclusion is, it was a valiant attempt. It was well intended, and it had potential, but ultimately I'm afraid it falls flat on its face, and it cannot be an explanation. It cannot work.